Now, caravans were important for connecting the different parts of the world, but eventually overland trade of the Silk Roads would be challenged by a new pattern of long-distance trade as people took to the seas with ships carrying, in a sense, much more than camels. And this is an image of a modern dhow in the harbor of Zanzibar, but in fact, this kind of technology existed in 1300 and would become an increasingly prominent way for connecting up disparate parts of the world. These vessels, and increasingly larger ships like the caravel, would be very important because they could carry more goods, and even more than just more goods, different kinds of goods. Because remember I mentioned that the Silk Roads were limited by their ability to carry preciosities, those commodities that had high value to bulk ratios. Well, once you could pack a lot more into the steerage of a vessel like a caravel, then that tipping point is brought down and you can start to carry less or goods that were not necessarily just preciosities. Teakwood, ivory, sugar, ebony, lead, earthenware, glass. Suddenly the commodity bundle of global trade became much more diverse. That the goods had lower value to bulk ratios. So there were two important causes for the sea lanes, the shift to the sea lanes from overland trade. The first is technical change. If you look at this image of the caravel, one of the things you notice is that at the very bottom, it's almost like an overturned castle. And people were able to put much more into their holds, much more cargo. That was an important driver. The second was that there were the arrival of new navigational techniques, the use of charts, the use of floating magnetic needles for compasses, something that was invented in China, allowed mariners to leave the shorelines and sail out into the open seas. So technical changes were very important. The second was that there were important changes in the social practices of businesses that allowed people to trade over longer distances. Arab businessmen opened houses with agents, often relatives from extended kinship networks, all over the Mediterranean as far as China. These Arab merchant houses were extremely important for connecting up the sea lanes together. In fact, kinship was an important device here because family members were critical for money making. In fact, it still is. We just call it nepotism. But in the old days, it was important because you could trust a family member to make good on his, and in some cases, her obligations if there were debts involved. In a sense, Arab merchants and Arab merchant houses were the world's first cosmopolitan traders, brokers between cultures. Arab merchants were the world's first agents then for commercial globalization when it moved to the sea lanes. Arabic was the language of business. There were others, Jews, Christians, but they tended to amalgamate themselves into a predominantly Arab business culture. And we get the emergence of the world's first world ports. If Samarkand was a hub of overland trade, cities like Malacca, Calicut, Aden, Venice would emerge as seaborne trading hubs or world ports. What's important is that there was a pattern to world history already unfolding around and after 1300, long before Christopher Columbus ever came along. And what's significant are the ways in which Europeans were, in a sense, adapting to these relationships and would, as you will see in later lectures, come to change them with time.